It's Wizards versus Lesbians, a podcast for your ears. Hello and welcome to Wizards versus Lesbians. My name's Isaac.
I'm Alexis.
And today we have Afterparty by Daryl Gregory.
Sure do.
Would you like to do the plot?
Sure. So, Lyda Rose is an incredibly unpleasant woman in the currently institutionalized as a result of a DUI when a fellow mental patient's suicide makes her realize that the feeling the experience of God drug that Lyda helped invent has now made it onto the streets. And so Lyda decides that it is her responsibility, accompanied by her angel hallucination that she got when she nearly fatally overdosed on said God drug, and also a cast of characters. She is going to attempt to track down where the God drug is coming from so that she can stop it, because she does not believe that anybody should have to experience what she has experienced.
Absolutely. Excellent summary.
Thank you.
Are there wizards in this book?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think arguably every main character, at least in this book, is a wizard, I would say.
Certainly everyone who has experienced the God drug, I think, counts as a wizard, and also kind of Lyda's girlfriend.
We have been known to read tech bros as wizards.
Yeah, I mean, also that, and there's multiple tech bros, but I mean, in this case, like, there's also, aside from the tropey things, these people also have semi-mystical, see visions that give them semi-mystical powers.
They're using 100% of their brains, in that old canard. So yeah, we'll call them wizards. And lesbians?
Yes. In fact, Lyda and Ollie have a conversation about how they are both lesbians, even though only one of them is a gold star lesbian.
Indeed. And do they fight? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's Lyda fights with everyone, so yes.
Yeah, there's wizard v lesbian conflict in this book.
Yes. This one has actually been on the candidate list pretty much since the podcast began. I just keep pushing it back until now.
Indeed. I don't know why you possibly would have decided to push this one back. Why should you read this book?
Well, so when I originally read it in grad school, like 12 years ago or whatever, it was moderately entertaining. Like, it filled the time on the train ride to and from grad school.
Sure.
It's moderately entertaining, and it is occasionally funny. Not necessarily intentionally.
I think it does have a few intentional jokes that work.
Yes.
I don't think they're in the majority, but I think that there are a few intentional jokes in this book that work. I'm going to say that you should read this book if you're in need of a history lesson.
This book is so much an artifact of its time. Like, it's fun, reading it in 2014 when it first came out, I was like, okay, yes, this reads like the science fiction, I was just yet another science fiction book. Though finding science fiction books about lesbians was harder back then. So
you took what you could get.
Now it is such a period piece.
It really is. And I specifically want you to read this if you are one of those people who is very nostalgic about the Obama administration. If you are one of those people who says, well, given everything that's happened, we really gave Reddit atheists a hard time. We should have been nicer to them. I want you to read this book.
Right?
I just want you to remember what it was like.
Also, like, if you want to remember what it was like to feel like the right wing was on their way out.
Yes, it's a really funny book in so many. I mean, this book has gotten far, far funnier since it was written. And
significantly.
And one of the ways in which it has gotten funnier is that it is one of those, the day after tomorrow type, science fiction futures. This book is trying to be Zero's William Gibson, and ends up being Ten's William Gibson, but worse. Because it is making a lot of very confident predictions based upon the way that things were right at that moment, before everything changed immediately in such a way that the future.
This is such a This is such a like run up to 2016 book.
Yes,
you can see the coming disaster. Like reading this is like reading Kitchen in the context of knowing, in the context of The Lost Decade.
Yeah.
You can see the disaster coming, and and everything in the book can see the disaster coming, and yet the author, actually, I don't know, but Benny Yoshimoto might have been able to, but Daryl Gregory, I don't think did.
No. So I think that this is a fun and funny historical artifact, and is probably a good temper for any false nostalgia that you might be feeling right at this moment.
Yes, I will also say in praise of this book, I hear a lot of complaints these days about how we're like, if you're the sort of person who goes, why can't female characters be as awful, get away with being as awful as male characters, this is a great book for you.
That's true.
Because this absolutely, like, Lyda is absolutely an asshole male protagonist. It's just, she's also female.
Yes. Yeah, and more on that later, I think.
Yeah. But, like, just in the completely unlikable female protagonist, like, I really do have to hand it to the author for having the courage to make his protagonist just, like, amazingly unlikable. And she's only grown more unlikable in the 12 years since I first read this book.
Oh, yeah. Why shouldn't you read this book? It's not very good. It's very bad. It's not good.
And it has only gotten worse in the 12 years since I read it. And this is not entirely because my standards have drastically increased, though they have. But also, unfortunately, a lot of the things that made this book a sort of entertaining caper novel, to pass the time on my train ride, the passage of time and everything that's happened in the intervening 12 years has really removed a lot of the fun from the fun bits.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and I hated this kind of story at the time, and it's only gotten worse since. So
yes,
I fear that this episode may be me just reading off a long list of things that
I will do my best to
that I don't like. So
I will do my best to at least make you, stretch yourself a bit in complaints.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's also bad in a kind of insidious way, because the first couple of chapters are better than the rest of the book by like a significant margin. It just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
And so I worry that people might be drawn in thinking that it's not as bad as we're making it out to be. And then I hope that you're the kind of person who stops reading a book, is all I will say, if you start reading this one. You're not missing anything. All right.
I mean, you're missing stuff. You're just not going to suffer for it.
All of the best jokes are front loaded. I'll put it that way. And then we'll get into the rest post spoiler zone. But regardless, content warnings.
It's kind of racist.
It is kind of racist.
I'm pretty sure that a lot of that is like specifically supposed to be the main character being unlikable, and again, like, congrats to the author for having the courage to make his main character racist as part of being unlikable, because we're currently in an era where it is okay to make your main character unlikable by having them actually murder people, but being racist is a bridge too far.
I think the narrative is structurally racist.
I think the narrative is also structurally racist.
Which makes it harder for me to distance the main character's racism from the potential racism of the narrative itself.
I think that there's two things going on here, and one of them is intentional and, actually works fairly well, and the other one is unintentional and makes the book significantly worse.
Yes. Torture. This is
Oh, there's so much torture.
This is a war on terror era thriller. Like, full stop. This is a 24 ass war on terror era thriller where the author is both sidesing it, like in terms of the efficacy of torture.
Right. The author really wants to be torture doesn't work, except somehow torture does work, and when it's necessary for the plot.
Yeah, no, this is very much a common trope of stories of this era.
Particularly like ones that are written from the left, right? The right-wing ones, torture just works.
Yep. Yeah. No, if you were nostalgic for the left of this era, go ahead and read this book. Anyway, and let's see here. Yeah, a lot of violence, a lot of mutilation, mind control stuff.
So much non-consensual drugging.
Yeah, that's sort of the plot. I think that if I was religious, I wouldn't be particularly happy with the way this book handles religion. I don't think this book understands religion, even though it's about religion.
This book definitely does not understand religion. I didn't find it any more offensive than most speculative fiction about religion, honestly. This is very much a book about again the left's relationship to hardcore atheism.
Mm-hmm.
And this very much feels like a Reddit atheist reaching for some way of understanding what makes evangelicals tick and just completely failing to get it.
Yeah.
But really trying to understand why people would be so quote unquote irrational over religion. And so, I mean, this is an incredibly Christian atheist book.
100%. We even got a Messiah. Yes, I will get into the rest post spoiler zone, but we've covered the racism. I'm not particularly comfortable with the way that this book handles homosexuality either, frankly.
I'm certainly not comfortable with the way that this book treats people with various disabilities and mental illnesses.
This book has a cartoon understanding of what mental health treatment looks like, and then spends the entire book basically within or adjacent to mental health treatment facilities.
Well, honestly, part of the problem is that it's not that unrealistic about the mental health industry, but it's incredibly unrealistic about just what people look like when they have mental health problems.
This is also a book where you can call up a psych ward and ask to speak to a specific patient, and they'll just put them on the phone for you. But that's not really a content warning, and we spend enough time here discussing things that annoy us but aren't really content warnings that we miss a few real ones. Animal experimentation, animal death, and somebody gets baby trapped, but lesbianly, which is possible in this universe. I
mean, this book obviously, for all that the author ostensibly consulted with neuroscientists, this book has no idea what schizophrenia is or how it works in any way. Mm-hmm. It's an incredibly, we'll talk more about this later, but just the way that this book talks about mental health rises to the level of a content warning. This is a
stupid book trying to be smart. And it also wants to talk about all the hot button issues it can get its hands on.
Yes.
So that is a consequence of being a stupid book trying to be smart, and this allows it license to be edgy about a wide variety of things, means that it gets a lot of things wrong. And whether that rises to the level of content warning or not depends on obviously all content warning depend on your point of view, but that's something to know going in, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But let's get on to talking about it, shall we?
Yes, all right. Let's go to the spoiler zone.
Light a rose, I'm home again, Rose, to get the sun back in the sky. Light a rose, I'm home again, Rose, about 1,000 kisses shy. Ding dong ding, I can hear the chapel bells chime. Ding dong ding, At the least suggestion, I'll pop the question. I can see what the author was doing, naming Lida Rose here. She's sort of the non-believer selling a beautiful dream to a bunch of rubes without buying into it herself until she does, eventually, for reasons. The major difference being that Professor Harold Hill was a rogue with a heart of gold and Lida's an asshole. But onto the spoiler zone. All right, here we are in the spoiler zone.
So do we want to start off with the ways in which this book is structurally racist? Because even in 2014, I felt like Roville's entire character arc was playing on some pretty awful anti-Asian racist tropes. Particularly like he's such a caricature from the time of a South Asian man. Mm-hmm. Of like the South Asian tech bro who's like weirdly emasculated and thus evil.
Yeah. It's also like it makes him autistic and then says that his autism makes him evil and sinister as well. Contrast this with the character who's supposed to be autistic later, who is a fully emotionally functional child genius who's nonverbal by choice.
Yeah.
Like, they think that his habit of rating people's attributes in spreadsheets is like this horrible, sinister thing that he does. I don't know. He's not actually a real person is the other thing. Like this character does not match up with anything that I like real or imagined. That's not how being a psychopath works. Being a psychopath is
right. I mean, the thing is that honestly, if I knew somebody was keeping a spreadsheet of rating everybody's intelligence and attractiveness, I would find that kind of creepy.
Yeah, no, it's creepy behavior, but it's also
it's creepy behavior, but also there's the thing is that somebody who this book really seems to think that being a creep is all being a creep is the same as being socially oblivious, is the same as being the guy who the pharmaceutical company makes hire the hitman for them.
Mm-hmm. I think it comes from the same naivete that colors the way that it talks about religion generally. Is it doesn't understand how much simple tribalism and self-interest underpins absolutely everything in the world. But that's maybe a separate conversation. My take on the structural racism of the narrative is the way that it uses different ethnicities as plot points and set dressing.
To be fair, that is this is a great thing to talk about because this is absolutely super common in cyberpunk and cyberpunk derivatives.
Oh yeah, no.
This is just baked into the genre in a fascinating way.
I mean, I think that holding this up against Neil Stephenson is very instructive. Because
this book doesn't quite have the flash. It's doing all the same awful things, but it doesn't quite have the cyberpunk era Neil Stephenson showmanship.
Yeah, Neil Stephenson is smarter than this guy.
Also, even more racist, but at least the writing is. But
it's the same. It's the same impulse, and Gibson is smarter than this guy and arguably slightly less racist, but not 0% racist.
Right, and because a lot of this does trace back to Gibson, being kind of a weeaboo, but
yeah,
and then Neil Stephenson is the one who I feel like did really turn this into every race has it's a very Dungeons and Dragons
100%.
Shadowrun
100%.
view of every race has specific bonuses and penalties to roles that they can take. And so this is why part of what makes Ollie so super powered is that, she has she's got Nordic coolness plus Southeast Asian ruthlessness plus she's been trained by the CIA. She is the ultimate cyberpunk character.
Yeah, this is a very D&D approach to character creation, which I don't think that's a bald negative if that's what you want to do.
I think it's a bald negative. I think that because the entire Dungeons and Dragons racial system is mechanically designed to allow people to commit genocide and still be, and still have the universe affirm that they are good.
Yeah, we should probably also mention Tolkien because this is Tolkien's fault.
Right, yes. And then Dungeons and Dragons like creates rules around this. Like that's what alignment charts and racial alignment is about. And the and like this is not a good thing, but it is one thing when you're talking about elves and goblins. It becomes another thing when you talk about actual real world nationalities and you're still bringing this character creation mentality with, again, this like built in, the alignment chart is still lurking in the background here.
Yeah, it's ironically a very sort of Roeville approach to humanity. This is also very interested in adding mental illness to that chart system, because it really wants you to know what perks and superpowers come with various forms of mental illness.
Right.
It's really far more interested in that than, say, the drawbacks that come with these kinds of mental illnesses. Despite the fact that characters bemoan them all the time, all of the plot-specific things that happen as a result of their hallucinations or paranoia are positive.
Right. It's the negative ones only happen in the background. Yeah, one of the things actually that I found super infuriating about this book is that it spends the entire time, like a lot of, like most of the drama, there's two sources of drama in Lyda and Ollie's relationship. And one of them is that Lyda is a terrible person.
Yes.
But the other is that, despite this, she cares about Ollie, and, Ollie has gone off her meds to unleash her magical mental illness powers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the tension comes from when is Ollie being off her meds going to tip over from, okay, this is mechanically useful for, making ability checks and saving throws, to this is actually destroying all of her interpersonal relationships. And at no point does it actually destroy all their interpersonal relationships or even really threaten them. I mean,
Ollie gets done so dirty by the narrative.
Ollie gets done so dirty. Honest, the worst part of this book is that is that when Lyda does the one like good interpersonal thing she does and is really awful to Ollie to drive her away, that isn't Ollie's point of freedom.
It's not Ollie's point of freedom. B, he doesn't want to write it because it would be too unsympathetic and too unpleasant.
So she doesn't even show. He skips. He has her describe what it is she's saying, but it doesn't actually show the conversation. So there's no emotional impact there.
And C, Ollie comes back afterwards and saves the day.
And they still have to have a conversation about it.
Nothing.
Nothing. There's not even an apology. We don't even get like a glimpse into Ollie's realization that, presumably Ollie went, oh, Lyda's doing this on purpose, and went back and, does like the various torture things that she needs to do for the plot. And then, and then shows up at Lyda's hospital bed. But like, we don't know that. We have no idea of what is going on in Ollie's head specifically to make her realize what Lyda has done.
Yes.
Or to make her decide that she doesn't care and she's coming back anyway. Like, is this a bit of self-awareness on Ollie's part? Or is this that she's just, continuing to be, decide that she would rather be in this relationship where she's being treated horribly?
Yeah. And the next time that we see her after that, she's back on her meds and wifed up. Like, yep. There is a zero transition back to that point.
Which is also frustrating because this is supposed to be the happy ending for our characters, and yet we already established in like the first couple chapters that the better medicated and emotionally stable Ollie is, the less attracted to her Lyda is. So like, this isn't gonna last.
And this actually ties back into what I wanted to say about the way this book handles race, because I think in addition to it being a handy way to do character stuff, like to demarcate D&D characters on your character creation sheet, I think it's also, isn't it cool? Like, right. How diverse I'm being. Isn't it cool how I'm including all of these different kinds of people in my story? And I think that is also why Lyda is a woman. Because there is nothing that separates, as you pointed out in the intro, there's nothing that separates Lyda from a an action hero dude of this era?
There is actually, which is there's an entire motherhood plot.
No. The way that Lyda deals with, like, the way that works in the narrative is 100% guy. Dead wife, missing kidnapped daughter. This is like...
Except that it is important that Lyda is the gestational parent.
Barely. Like, we do... Because...
I guess you're right, barely, because we could have just had Sasha be as... Well, no, because the thing is that... this is the one specific thing, and this is great because again, this very much is a novel that's written by 2014 Reddit. Is that the one like very female thing, at least according to Reddit, that that Lyda does is baby trap her ex.
Yes. But like
we should add that to the we need to add that to the spoiler or to the content warnings is non-consensual use of somebody's reproductive genes to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm. It's also very...
and the thing is that is a different trope from forcibly getting somebody pregnant, and that is something that only does work because Lyda herself has a uterus. Other than that, yes, it's absolutely, she's absolutely deadbeat dad with a dead wife, but that specific thing does actually require her to be female.
Yeah. I think that Lyda is female because it is equally in as much as it's part of the cyberpunk futuristic setting for there to be all kinds of non-white people around. It is part of the, futuristic cyberpunk setting for there to be lesbians.
Yeah, though, to be fair, Lyda is not a cyberpunk lesbian. She's
an action hero lesbian. She's 100% an action hero lesbian.
Yeah, the thing is, and this is, again, ways in which she's very much an action hero dude also. She's in her 40s. She's kind of out of shape. She has a drinking problem.
She's in her 40s, but is a 15-year-old. Which, again, I thought that she was a teenager during the entire first chapter. Until she mentions how old she is.
And then she spends a lot of time talking about, how out of shape she is. But
yeah. But she has the interiority of a teenager and the politics of a teenager.
Which, again, that's very action hero.
Yeah.
Because she does also very much have the interiority and politics of a dude from a late aughts, early teens war on terror thriller.
Oh my God. Like, speaking of Neil Stephenson comparisons, this book also does the thing where the action stops so the characters can have a conversation about whatever the author happens to be thinking about at the time. And, forgive me for saying this, but Stevenson's interests are more interesting. But this is like the plot stops so that we can look at a Reddit forum thread from 2014.
Right.
Like several times as we're coming toward the finale, like in the rising action stage at the end, this happens. This is one of the reasons why the book gets worse as it goes on.
Right. We're having the dramatic getaway or whatever. And we just have to like pause for a moment to talk about the tea party.
It's really extraordinarily bad. Like, it is like, I did not sign up to read your forum thread or to listen to your opinions on this matter, particularly given that they aged like milk.
Right. I mean, because this is another thing where, like, back in 2014, this could read as cultural commentary. And now, with these extra 12 years, it's like, oh no, this wasn't cultural commentary. This was just you swimming in the cultural soup.
Yep. Swimming in the soup. But, yeah. No, I think that they're like, and this is one of those things where it's like, what is good representation is a question that we find ourselves asking over and over again. Is having a bunch of women and a bunch of non-white people in your book good if you don't give them anything to do, if you don't write them in a way that meaningfully distinguishes them from like white dudes?
Alternately, I mean, because there's also the representation debate of, and I think this one's a genuinely unsettled question, is it a good thing for marginalized groups to get to be the heroes of the same kinds of tired, culturally reinforcing, cultural norm reinforcing narratives that the dominant groups have gotten to be? Or is there an inherent moral duty or artistic duty for marginalized groups to produce edgy art? And like, neither of these is good. Neither, you know? And so we're just going to keep sort of going back and like, I don't think it's a settleable debate. And this one is very much the, no, lesbians should also get to be the protagonists of what if Reddit wrote a cyberpunk novel.
Yes. I think of it as like, you know, Carol Danvers gets to have a lesbian haircut in her capacity as head of the Space IMF in the Avengers movies. Like, as I've said before on the podcast, I was watching all of the Marvel movies at the time that this was written, and this just like it gives me an autoimmune reaction when I come across a story like this. But
it's funny, and reading this is part of what, you know, gave me an autoimmune reaction to seeing the Marvel movies at the time they were coming out. So
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. But like, is it good representation to have that, like the Cambodian family whose dad Ollie shot, and who the point of their being in the book for the one scene that they're in the book is so that they can be mean to her about it, not understanding that it was her mental illness that caused her to cripple their father.
Well, the thing is that they do understand it. They do understand it. They're just like, this doesn't mean you don't, you know, that you didn't do a bad thing, and perhaps should have at least shown up to apologize at some point.
Yeah, and this makes them bad people.
I don't actually think it's supposed to have made them bad people. I think you're supposed to go, okay, I understand why Ollie did this, but she really did do these people wrong.
Well, that would have been useful if Ollie had a character arc. But since Ollie doesn't have a character arc, then it's just there.
It's just there. I mean, Ollie is definitely unfortunately, she's the most interesting thing in the book, and also like the least developed. Like she's just like the biggest waste of potential.
She's playing the role of the woman in the lesbian relationship.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And thus is the biggest, including being incredibly tiny, skinny, half Asian, and badass.
Yes, and at this point I would like to raise the specter of one Mr. Joss Whedon. I would like to call him Mr. Joss Whedon to
right?
the stand.
I know, Ollie is such a Joss Whedon love interest, like waif.
I don't care what fun you had, Joss Whedon was always bad. Firefly particularly, you can't take this take from me. Okay, it was occasionally funny, but that was mostly Ben Edlund. And the special psychic, you know, autistic daughter.
Yes.
The very special psychic autistic daughter that is in all of Joss Whedon's stories.
We have two of them here, really. We have both Ollie and Sasha.
Yeah, Sasha when Sasha arrived, I was like, oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yep.
And, like, I think it is very telling. I'm just going to say this. I think it is very telling, and perhaps one reason that Lyda Rose is not a guy is because this would have come off far more obvious if Lyda Rose had been a guy, is that the narrative's way of telegraphing that Lyda has trauma over a missing daughter that we don't know that she has until that point.
Is that every time she sees a little girl, she's like, that little girl was so beautiful.
She flushes. She becomes short of breath. She's like, oh, she's pretty. 43-year-old woman.
Yeah, which unfortunately, yes, looking at 6-year-old girls, which unfortunately, and unless you know that this is supposed to be about her adoption trauma, her trauma of giving up her daughter for adoption, just makes her come off as a lesbian pedophile.
Yes, yes, it does. I don't think that the concept of lesbian pedophile entered the author's mind, or else he wouldn't have done it this way. It is extraordinarily funny, and I don't know if it's on purpose or not. I can't imagine that it is.
I don't think it is. Given the era, I just don't think it is.
But it keeps happening. And I think that there's something telling in that about the way that Joss Whedon writes very special magical autistic children. I'm just going to say that. I think that there's always that little undercurrent there. And how much she resembles the tiny Asian love interests and her, you know, mental illness, which makes her hot. And like the way that this is set up so that like after the first time Lyda sleeps with Ollie, there is like a chemical countdown to at what point Ollie is going to become crazy, paranoid, possessive about her.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is literalized with like her withdrawing from her brain meds.
Yes, it's not the first time they've ever slept together. It's the first time they sleep together in the book.
In the book, yeah. But it's like, oh, she's gonna get weird and crazy and attached. And if Ollie's arc had again been paid off in any way, we might have seen the consequences of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Joss Whedon, of course, gets name checked in this book, just in case that you didn't know. Richard Dawkins also gets name checked and then thanked in the acknowledgments.
All of the new atheists get name checked. There's because we have to stop and like recap, you know, a Reddit thread / blog. This is the era where I guess there's still occasionally blogs. So, you know, we have to stop and like recap a debate between the various schools of new atheist.
Yep. Alexis, did you see the way that Richard Dawkins made the news most recently at the time of recording?
Was this his thing about AI?
Yeah, he has come out and said that he believes that his Claude agent, who he has renamed Claudia because he likes to think of his AI assistant as a woman, is in fact sentient, but also that she, you know, dies and is reborn every time he turns her on and off. So, you know,
okay.
Just a little insight into the mindset here.
Yeah, speaking of, you know, things that have aged like milk.
That article came out like weeks ago. But yes, hopefully by the time you read this, or by the time that some future person listens to this, that will also have aged in a similarly risible way. But yes. So let's talk about Lyda. Dream of now, dream of then. And like how much of her being this incredibly unpleasant person is on purpose.
I think it's gotta be. Like, I genuinely think it's gotta be. Partly because occasionally she will remark to herself that she is being unpleasant. And that you do actually get, and like, the thing is that the people around her do react with the sort of like, you know, she actually does hurt people's feelings when she's being awful. And she alienates people when she's being awful, and she screws up social situations. I mean, I think part of it's on purpose because you have to create a reason for her to want her angel hallucination back, and her angel hallucination, who's, you know, her better nature and all of her social skills. When it's gone, she just cannot do anything right. And she's just deeply unpleasant, and she keeps driving her angel away by being such an unpleasant person. Like, I think that this is supposed to, I think that Lyda is such a miserable human being, an awful human being, that her own better nature hallucination keeps leaving. It's gotta be deliberate, because it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is exactly what is going on here. And I think that might lead into a discussion of what this book thinks religion is. Because
yeah, this book doesn't seem to understand that religion is community.
Yeah, no, it's a religion is like, according to this book, being in a cult. I mean, it does go the cult route with the new churches. B, it is like having superpowers, because it makes you immune to fear and pain.
Oh God, I wish that were true.
C, it grants you empathy powers, which under normal circumstances people don't have.
Mm-hmm.
D, religion is like having an imaginary friend. Right,
which classic new atheism.
And E, religion is like being schizophrenic.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like fear and of the unknown wrapped up in all of that. But it is also the kind of prejudice that is pedestalizing. In fact, very much the way that cyberpunk tends to treat Asian people.
Yeah.
It is, oh, this weird, foreign culture must give people superpowers, and I kind of envy them and desire them at the same time that I'm weirded out by them and I don't understand them.
And also specifically that I look down on them because, this like, oh, it makes these people happy, but they don't seem to understand that they're actually just mentally ill.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the anger seems to come from, don't you understand that you're indulging in, illogic and mental illness? Why is this something to celebrate? And
also I envy you because you're happy and I'm not, or I think you're happy and I'm not.
And I mean, but part of what's so fascinating to me is that this is the most individualized view of mental illness, of religion possible. I mean, everybody's religious, even the church. The church isn't about community and getting to and friendship at like the street churches that are spreading this. At no point are any of the value of the street church just that people are actually forming human bonds. It's entirely that they're having this mystical experience. They're taking a drug and having a mystical experience, and it is specific. And the thing that kills Francine at the beginning is that she is having withdrawal from the drug and the mystical experience, and not the isolation. Because in fact, she actually is able to reconnect to a person who has been kind to her in the mental hospital. But that's not enough, because what she actually needs is the drug of religion.
Yeah, that actually connects to the sixth thing that religion is like, which is like terrorism, because the way that these churches are organized is specifically compared to
textually,
decentralized terror cells.
Yeah.
And because they don't have an overarching authority or an overarching community, they're each their own little reaction to this particular mental condition substance. And this is interesting because it's like a book that this is clearly borrowing heavily from, like Snow Crash. Say what you will about Snow Crash, but it at least understands the nature of communities and the reason why people organize.
No, it doesn't.
At least it posits
it doesn't. Like, it posits that the thing that is bringing these communities together is that language can operate as a virus.
Yes.
As a computer virus that, like, blue screens human beings and computers alike.
That's the part that this book is taking. But there's also like people exist in communities in order to
No, because people only exist. Like, Snow Crash is doing the exact same thing of community as a mental illness. Like, this, like, Snow Crash at least understands that people being around other people can, affect their experience of mental illness. But no, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you do not have to hand it to Neil Stephenson on this particular subject.
I'll just say the pizza mafia is like a family in Snow Crash. They're like a family.
It's not.
I'm leaving this in because it's really funny. I feel like I thought, are you making me read this as revenge for me being into Neil Stephenson back in the day? Is one of the thoughts that I had while I was reading this book.
No, but I should have.
Because you're right, I am absolutely giving Neil Stephenson too much credit. It is the same exact thing underpinning it.
It's just that, again, Neil Stephenson is, has better showmanship. And so he's able to sell you on this, on his world a little bit better. Also partly just because it's further abstracted from, this one is a little bit more grounded in an actual place and time. It's, though not very, the math doesn't actually work on this one, because if she's getting her, because they at one point they referred to the 20s. So, and if Lyda is 42 and she's already got her PhD in 2015, then like there's no way that she's younger than 25. So
this is a problem with Day After Tomorrow science fiction generally, but yeah, no, this book doesn't know what year it is.
Yeah.
And actually, while I'm making comparisons to other books, I wanted to mention like the strange similarities this book has with Last Exit.
Mm.
The murderous cowboy like agent entity thing. It's weird that that has happened twice in in books that we've covered on this podcast, and I think it's also
Well,
interesting
it makes more sense in this book. Well, the thing is, I guess in both cases, in Last Exit, it's trying to engage with the cow. Like in both cases, I think it's about grappling with the Bush years.
Yeah,
And in Last Exit, it's trying to grapple with the Bush years as like a cultural artifact, in the context of the Trump years. And does it succeed? No, but at least it's trying to do a thing. In this case, this is just Obama era Bush trauma.
yeah. Like it is interesting to sort of watch Last Exit try to tackle many of the same ideas, albeit again in a much more thoughtful and better way than
Yeah,
this book
honestly,
does.
I'm come to think of it, I think part of why I liked Last Exit better than you did is that I'd read more stuff that was trying to do the same thing worse.
There, you do have a
which
point
this
there.
book is an example.
Um,
Because also the tech, dealing with tech bro stuff and dealing with, and dealing with like the cowboy as cultural like the cowboy as very specific American war on terror era and post-war on terror era toxic masculinity of a kind, and this one again is just more like, what if we put somebody who's very much like a Tea Party era guy.
There may be a common ancestor in Stephen King. It is interesting to see that Last Exit is like doing the same thing from a perspective where like most of the pillars that are holding up this worldview have been knocked over.
Yeah.
And it's like it's much easier to see the skeleton of it when those supporting posts are gone,
Mm-hmm.
But again, one of the
and partly Last Exit is about the disillusionment that came after this era.
Yeah. But I think one of the advantages of Afterparty is that it is like dumb and unsubtle enough that you can sort of see that entire philosophy laid out.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the thing that hit, the thing about reading this book, a lot of it, I was like, oh, the 12 intervening years has not really changed my opinion of most of this book. It's just made a lot of the stuff more obvious. It's made a lot of the stuff more obvious that it was unintentional and of its era. Except for, when they stopped to have a 2-paragraph discussion about how, remember the Tea Party? Remember the toxic right wing and how that eventually fizzled out because the next generation wasn't racist enough to sustain it?
Yeah, no. I will say that like maybe the stupidest thing that the left in this country ever did was talk very loudly about how demographic shifts were going to render the Republican Party a non-factor going forward.
And very specifically the like racist, Tea Party wing of the Republican
Let's
Party.
just parade in front of the racist white supremacists saying, oh, the Great Replacement is real and it's happening to you. And we're not going to do anything to prevent you from trying to change that, by the way. We're just pointing out that it's inevitable, so we don't have to do anything.
Because this is a foregone conclusion. Yeah.
Fucking idiots. We all were. I will say we all were.
Yep.
But yes, I had to get that off. I had to get that off my chest. Sorry. But regardless, I was reading that and I was like, oh, I remember this. I remember people saying this in public as if it was a real thing that you could say. I remember it so vividly,
I know. But rolling way back to the way that it handles religion, is that, and I think that this is something that always sort of I find kind of interesting but also frustrating about New Atheism. I mean, like, it's because it's very much rooted in and a reaction to fundamentalist Christianity, and so it's very grounded in the idea of personal belief,
mm-hmm.
and part part of Lyda's entire struggle is reconciling what, she as an intellectual believes versus her emotional belief. And this is also kind of in the end her superpower, is that she is able to feel the love of God and benefit from it while still understanding that this is fundamentally imaginary. And I mean, this is definitely an atheist's fantasy of how, one can make one's peace with religion. But it is fascinating to me because Christianity is despite the fact that this is all that so much of the religious stuff here talks about how, all religion is fundamentally the same. Because again, this is coming out of New Atheism. And so thus all religion is fundamentally the same, and it is all Protestantism. But also, the only actual functional religion you see is, in this book, always Christian. I mean, there's 0 Jews in this book. Near future, all the Jews just gone. Despite the fact that we're dealing with a bunch of scientists and academics at various points in time, no Jews. The one South Asian guy is actually Christian. This is actually a crucial plot point, is that he's Christian. This is how we're supposed to understand that his claiming to have a hallucination of Ganesh is, in fact, is how you can secretly tell that he's evil, is that he's a Christian pretending to be Hindu. And we have Afghan refugees who are clearly supposed to be Muslim, but despite the fact that they wear headscarves, there's no other way in which, Islam is a cultural thing for them, but never actually shows up as a functional religion. We see an Islamic pastor of the underground church, and yet he is a pastor of the underground church, believing that all gods are the same. Yes. And so he's totally willing to give communion and call himself a pastor.
Yeah, we don't even, and it's like we're not even extending this grace to Catholics, because he's also a member of the Mexican mafia.
That's a different pastor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but right, that's the thing is, in our special drug street church, homeless people street church, we meet one pastor who's a former member of the Mexican mafia. And
with their African overlords, I should just mention.
Yes, with their African overlords, and and a guy who's Muslim.
Yep.
We don't actually have a Protestant in here.
It's fun. It's funny.
And the thing is that, and this clearly isn't supposed to be a commentary on this, because there's no conflict. There's no need to reconcile. Anyone who takes the drug automatically understands that all religion is the same. And anybody who doesn't take the drug isn't religious, except for Ollie.
Mm-hmm.
Except for Ollie, who, again, this is another obvious attempt to understand, from somebody who's clearly who doesn't understand how religion works.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can you, if you don't have the God drug, how can you be religious? And we need Ollie to be religious because we need another source of conflict between her and Lyda. Okay, well, the thing is that when she was, mentally ill and unemployed and not yet institutionalized, she was really suicidal, and showing up to church when nobody else was around gave her some sort of nebulous comfort that stopped her from committing suicide. Which, again, the only church experience that can be helpful is the one that is incredibly personalized and in the absence of other people. And
yes, I didn't talk to anybody internal. Over the course of this. Yeah.
Right?
Because it scares them.
Right. It's just, it is fascinating to me as a member of a religious community that it does not demand any form of personal belief, and that isn't, largely about the communal activity.
I want to talk also about the main thing that the God drug does to you, that is a switch on or switch off, which is it gives you empathy. Again,
yes,
not a thing that I've observed to be an inherent part of the faith experience. But
It's also not, I mean, it is fascinating though, because they're out of this era, because this is also the era of like secular humanism and no, you don't understand. Atheists can be just as empathetic and caring as everybody else, says people who are behaving incredibly badly over on the internet.
yeah, no, there might be an element of satire here. I mean, as I always say, when we get to the point of discussing a really dumb book that can't possibly be as
Right,
dumb as
it's
it's
like-
coming off.
Well, the thing is that it's clear that this book is aiming for satire. So I don't think it's as much of a reach, but
the way that like, you know, the way that we get a confession out of Ravel is that we induce empathy in him via a drug overdose.
right. And also the only torture that works on the various drug church pastors is to kidnap two of them at once and torture one in front of the other.
Yeah. And not to be Mr. Horseshoe Theory here, but the latest right-wing talking point what's gone wrong with the Western world is that we have collectively suffered from something called suicidal empathy, where we
that's like the idea that we're too empathetic has been a problem, has been like a right-wing talking point for a while now.
yeah, but this phrase has gained
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had not heard the phrase suicidal empathy.
Yeah. But it's like this fundamentally irrational thing, again, not understanding what a community is for,
right?
Or in their case, you know, the quiet part is your empathy has malfunctioned because you have allowed it to extend beyond what we perceive as your community, which is white Christians.
Yeah.
But in this case, that it can be something. It is again something that is foreign to or malfunctioning and can be chemically induced or destroyed, as in the case of the cowboy.
Yeah.
Is just like, I don't think that's what empathy is. I don't believe that it's just something that has a particular, like, that you can, that
It's
there's
not
a
a
drug
switch
that
you can flip in the brain. Like, yes, I mean,
well, maybe,
yeah,
you know,
like,
you can
yes,
take
we are
ecstasy
all
and feel that, like, you know, that extra little lift to your feeling of brotherhood to your fellow man, but that's not the same as like empathy. So what is empathy, smartass? There seem to be two working definitions. One is when you pay attention to a person's words, tone, body language, and or overall life situation and guess what they might be feeling. This is a skill most people acquire as infants, and if you miss out on that, you can learn to do it later. It's a skill like any other. Two is when you pay attention to a person and guess what they might be feeling and care. This is largely a factor of whether you think the person you're talking to is part of your in-group. For some people, humanity is the in-group. Maybe even some non-human animals. Maybe even some non-human animals to the exclusion of some humans. For some people, there's no in-group at all. Biological and cultural and economic factors help determine the outcome of this. Religion does only in as much as it provides an in-group and a set of cultural norms regarding the limits of human sympathy. Experience of the numinous may change your way of thinking, but it certainly isn't an instant empathy install, and I don't even know how you come to that conclusion. This is so frustrating. Oh, and did you not sign up to be lectured on culture and cognition by a guy with no qualifications beyond having a microphone? Well, imagine how I feel. Hurt people hurt people.
right. Well, and you know, and the other thing is, I think that this also just has such a cartoonish view of neurochemistry. You know, the idea that, like, I mean, it's trying to be sophisticated by pointing out that all these drugs that were created to treat one thing have all of these unintended side effects. But still, the idea that, you know, empathy and this experience of the numinous can be flipped on and off.
Mm.
And that, you know, that there aren't like a million different ways that it can come about. Like, also just the idea that for everyone, this, you know, experience of the sublime is solely linked to God and religion.
Yeah, that's very strange. Like,
Right?
as a person who has had plenty of spiritual experiences for various different reasons and at various different times, I've never believed in God. You know, these two things are separate functions, or like they're
I mean, the thing
yeah,
is that I think that they are related.
they're related certainly, but
But
like
yes, you can have a spiritual experience without believing in God, and I I think you can probably even have a like swelling of empathy and love for your fellow person and be a religious person and not see the two things as intrinsically linked.
yeah, or have it be an explicit part of your religion and have it not extend past people who are your co-religionists, which
Right.
is how it works in many cases, you know.
Yes.
um,
I mean, I guess this is again, all religions are Christianity. So clearly, religion is the same as God is the same as brotherhood.
just
All of the,
again, just I think it's just intellectual laziness. To be is what it all comes back to. But
I mean, I honestly think that part of the point of this book is somebody who fundamentally doesn't understand religion trying to extend empathy and be, what would make this make sense to me? And part of that is taking Christians at their word on how religion works.
yeah, I think
What if
that's
this,
right.
what if religion really does work the way that fundamentalist Christians say it does? And and like many Christians say it does, this is universal and what all religion fundamentally is, and everybody's, relationship to God and spiritualism. And on top of that, because we, the perceived reader of this book, don't believe in any of that bullshit, clearly this is all just neurochemical. So,
Hmm.
What if we could take a pill and experience what obviously every religious person who's sincerely religious is experiencing, which is what fundies say Christianity is.
Okay, I'm starting to feel bad now. We're getting close to a time here,
Yes.
but I
And we
don't.
still haven't even talked about like a lot of the ways that this book handles mental illness, which I do think we need to complain about at least a little.
I think this is going to be a long episode because I also want to do to talk about various other things about it because I'm still upset, and like, uh, so I will let's talk about mental illness first, and then I'll go into what I want to get to. I actually want to say some nice things about it also.
Okay, well we'll end on a positive note.
Okay, I'll save that for then.
Because okay, first of all, this book just like fundamentally does not understand schizophrenia. This book does not understand how hallucinations work. The I mean, I guess points for noticing that anti-epileptic. Also, like this book just seems to have missed. Like, this book just seems, there have been such the new antipsychotics were in fact fairly easily accessible by the time this book came out, like all the new much more effective antipsychotics, and yet they don't exist in this book, even though every other psychiatric medication has gotten way more advanced. Somehow all of the like Abilify type drugs just don't exist, and there was no, and which is why they're putting her on anti-epileptics, which was like the previous generation of how you treat psychosis.
It's one of the pitfalls when you consult experts in the field is that not some experts in the field don't want to are not up to date on the latest things, sometimes on purpose. So
The I mean, I'm pretty sure that at that point they were in fact into generic out of patent, most of them. So, but it's just, again, honestly, part of it's that it's this it's intensely rooted in this like sort of very clean, clear, intellectually parsable experience. Everything
yes.
has to be something that you can understand and compartmentalize. And I mean, like, so I'm not somebody who's experienced psychosis, though, boy, have I seen it up close and personal. But like a lot of the other thing, I have experienced various other mental things, and part of the thing with it is that even when you understand that it's going on, you can't do the thing that Lyda does, which is say, oh, you're not real.
Yeah, no, that's sort of the point.
That's even when you know it's not real, and even when you have like really good CBT techniques to handle emotional dysregulation or whatever, like the experience is still just as immediate. You're just able to like modulate your behavior and stop specific thought patterns. But like, it doesn't change the emotional experience. And somehow Lyda is able to do that.
There are many elements of Lyda that have whiff of this, but this is a particularly, well, if I were in this situation, I would simply use my superior brain to understand that the hallucinations weren't real. You know, RIP to you, but I'm built different.
Right. When, you know, actually, I think it's pretty common when you're having a kind of mental episode and are fairly educated, or, you know, like Lyda is, to go, oh, well, I'm smarter than everyone around me, so clearly my emotions and, you know, clearly what I'm seeing and feeling must be correct.
Yeah, no, the more competent and privileged you are, I think the more vulnerable you are, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the thing is that this book is, I actually think that there are points where this book is trying to do that, because there's points where Lyda is clearly wrong. The narrative knows that she's wrong. It's clear that she's acting out trauma or addiction or whatever, but it still wants her thoughts, you know, to be clear, and for her to, it wants her to be weirdly, it wants her to be a reliable narrator.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very frustrating. Also, Bobby, like, for example, is just a real caricature of somebody who has intellectual disabilities. I don't know what the current term for those are, but
yeah.
Especially because every other mentally ill person in this book is hyper intelligent and hyper competent, and then we have our one guy who's like childishly naive.
Yeah, who is here for comic relief.
I think that he's partly just there to show us what a terrible person Lyda is.
Yeah, possibly to set up her being happy to use Roval in the same way, and thus miss his, you know, sinister intent.
Yeah, but I think that's actually probably true, and that's not, you know, but also, honestly, he's part of the happy ending, is that, you know, that Ollie gets wifed up, and they sort of have Bobby as a surrogate child, because, yes, you know, so even though this is a grown-ass man.
Yep, 100%. It's positivity time. I wanted to talk about the things that this book does that I liked.
Okay. Oh, but can we first just briefly talk about the waterboarding Afghans?
It's positivity time? Oh, well, that dovetails nicely, because I think that the concept of the barber torture, like, and the idea of putting your, like, the vulnerability of putting your head back when your hair is being done.
Oh yeah, no, that was actually a good scene.
I think that's a cool setup for what they were doing there. I like that. The fact that it then became a waterboarding thing immediately ruined it.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, you know, I think it would have been a better scene if they'd in fact actually given her a haircut.
Yes, a sinister haircut would have been better. And, like, I think, and this sort of is relates to what I mean, the fact that she's like,
plus then she could have had like a great haircut throughout the rest of the book, which would have been really funny.
And, like, I think that's in this author. Like, the first couple of in the first few sequences in this book, there are fun setup and punchline things.
Yes.
Like when we get introduced to Dr. Grace, the angel, and it throughout the entire first chapter, Dr. Gloria, sorry, you can understand the mistake. It is about as subtle.
Yes.
That during that first sequence, we don't know that she's a hallucination, and we just think that Lyda is being, like, bizarrely bitchy to two doctors instead of just bizarrely bitchy to one doctor. And the reveal of that, good punchline.
Yeah.
Then later, you know, and you can, whether this is in essence a homophobic joke is up to the reader to decide. But the college students are taking the frat boys are taking the gay for a day drug so they can all fuck each other.
And then it turns out that it's actually just Viagra.
Yeah. And that they're just horny college students.
Yeah, honestly, that was pretty funny. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, if the sinister haircut just turned out to be a haircut, that would be a good joke, you know? If the book kept doing those kinds of setup and then rug pull undercut things, you know, I would have had a better time. And clearly if the author had wanted to lean into that kind of joke rather than to make it a serious, thriller with a wisecracking asshole protagonist, but still pulls on the old heartstrings at the same time, then I think that I would have had a better time. I think that there is a good book in here where the kid is the villain.
Where Sasha is the one who's secretly distributing the drug.
Yeah, and I thought for a while
and also hiring because you have the Wander Man, and so it absolutely could have been like the Wander Man, imaginary friend is in fact the one hiring the cowboy, and
or that she's like a weird little genius who's designing drugs that like imprint her imaginary friend personalities on these guys. That could have been what the homeless guy is about also. The homeless guy being the angel in disguise is just fucking hack shit, can I just say.
And the author tries to lampshade it by having Lyda complain about how it's fucking hack shit, but like it's already happened. It already happens at the very end of this incredibly hack ending. So where even the cat is fine.
Yes.
Oh, we forgot to we do have to put in content warning though, animal experimentation and animal death.
Okay, yeah, I'll put that back in. But I think that there were some elements here which could have been salvaged. I'll just put it that way. But it did not happen.
No,
it did not happen.
No,
which is unfortunate. And instead we get, as you say, the lampshading. Like, after the waterboarding, the angel says, the angel says, "These Afghan bitches, I blame the Americans for this."
Right.
It's like, great. That's the better angels of your nature saying that. Fantastic. Hurt people hurt people. That's ironic.
Of course, this is extra funny because this is, Canadians all saying this. So, like, this isn't, the thing is that this isn't even, like, a moment of American self-reflection. Oh, what have we done? We're only hurting ourselves. It's, oh, what have we done? We're only hurting the Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
This is set in Toronto. I guess I should, we could put content warning Toronto, but that's just because I had an unpleasant time there last January.
I'm not going to go do the I don't want to go to Toronto joke again.
You don't have to.
Mm-hmm. But, Toronto is a very multicultural city. It is, at least it's not all white people, like, I don't think that this is a good way to do a, like, next location, we're going to Istanbul, yellow filter, racist music sting feeling that this book has in the way that it deals with non-white people. But at least they're there, which is accurate.
Yeah.
This is another one where I could just read out, like, various things that that were said in it that made me laugh. Mm-hmm. It is really funny how thoroughly wrong it is about everything that's about to happen. Like, what are we driving? Oh, biodiesel vehicles.
Right.
What's going to happen with medicine and drugs and the popular sentiment about drugs? Oh, well, I guess the opioid epidemic hadn't happened yet. COVID hadn't happened yet. But it's really amazing how quickly that particular one went off the rails as far as your understanding of what the future is going to be.
This really feels like an extrapolation from, when this book came out, you could get a bunch of prescriptions of dubious quality off of the dark web, and because that was before a lot of this stuff got shut down, I think.
Yeah, no, it's very much smart drugs time.
I would actually have to check a timeline to be sure about that, but I feel like this is from the era where, again, we thought that it was just going to get easier and easier to access drugs because the war on drugs had been so fundamentally lost.
That's something that I associate more with, like, the first .com boom, is people being really excited about designer drugs.
The thing is that it happens with every .com boom. Like, yeah. The thing is that designer drugs are an older thing, but I feel like specifically because this is like the what's it called? Nootropics? It's like that era. Mm-hmm. This is very much coming out of that era where everybody can get their own custom-made mental enhancers. And party drugs.
Mm. Yes. But so there's that. There's, for some reason, making a smartphone into a pen because that is easier to work with. not having a screen is something
Yeah. Also,
people would want.
just I mean, everything being smart is actually somewhat accurate, I think. But yeah, the idea that phones really haven't changed since this book came out.
No. The entire neuroplasticity idea that it's based on is also not.
It's been even more thoroughly discredited than it already was.
Et cetera, et cetera. One thing that it did get right is that in the dystopian near future, we all will still be making Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter references.
That's true.
So I wish that it hadn't been correct about that, but it was 100% correct about that. But yeah, a few choice quotes. Ollie says, "I've got bots crawling the social web." We have Canadians have drones too? ? But I think that's about it, because by the time we got into the, we're suddenly reading a new atheist internet thread part of the book. I didn't even have the willpower to write down things that were being said anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now this is this is a bad one.
But it's bad in interesting ways.
It sure is. I mean, we got like an extra long podcast out of it. There's no denying that is what we did. My notes say that there was also like a noteworthy horrible dinner party in here. I don't.
Oh,
remember
well, there was the tech party.
Oh yeah. The horrible tech party where everybody's taking like instant working hallucination drugs.
Yeah.
That one was also, that is also awful. I think that this year's Weasleys do need to have a horrible dinner party category.
Yeah, I think you may
that's
be
been
right.
firmly established at this point. But
worst dinner party.
maybe we can grandfather a few older ones into that. But all right, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think we're done. And I think next time we're doing a retro. We're doing a different kind of retro book, but also cyberpunk. Because we are doing Escape Plans, which is Gwyneth Jones does cyberpunk.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be very exciting. So, until then.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.